Welcome in everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come in here every single week and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money, Kyle Larson. We have a guest on today's show, Dylan, but before we start with today's show, we'd like to send all of our thoughts and prayers out to the family and friends of World of Outlaws, Case Construction Late Model Series announcer Rick Eshelman. The racing world got the news on Saturday that Rick unfortunately passed away. Dylan Rick was a voice that myself and many others will never forget, and we'll all miss him very dearly in the World of Outlaws late model events around the country. So without further ado, Dylan, we'll welcome in Austin to the show here. Austin, how you doing, man?
Good. Happy to be on again.
Second appearance.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, so if anybody's like an OG podcast listener from back earlier in the season, I don't remember what episode was it, Dylan, that Austin was on here before.
I think it might have been like episode 3 or 4.
Okay.
It was really early on.
Somewhere around there.
Right. Yeah, so we're glad to have you back, Austin. We're going to talk a little bit of dirt track racing. It was a busy week of racing for Kyle Larson. Unfortunately, on Tuesday night, we thought we were going to see the second race for that high limit sprint car series at Wayne County, but the weather just was not cooperating at all. Got rained out. There was a couple of rain showers in the afternoon. They thought they were going to be able to get it in, but right before they were going to get things kicked off, another big shower came through and wiped out that event. It was a good car count on hand, but definitely looking forward to that series next year. There is going to be no rescheduled date for that Wayne County race, but the next night, Wednesday night, Austin, you were there at the Atomic Speedway, your, I guess, home track.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 15, so in the racing world, that's considered close.
Okay. Yeah, so is that actually the closest track to you there in Ohio?
Yeah, dirt or asphalt, that's definitely the closest one.
Okay. Yeah, so Kyle Larson, obviously not a great night there back in the late model, his first one in the late model for like 2 months since he was at Fairbury for the Prairie Dirt Classic. 14th place finish at Atomic. Austin, what are your just initial big takeaways from the race? Obviously, the Kyle Larson side of things not so great.
Well, it's good to see him back in the late model. For some reason this year, it's kind of went away from him a little bit. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like to start the race off, the first 10, 15 laps, definitely in turns 3 and 4, he couldn't find a line. Like, he was all over the place trying to find something. I noticed down at the early part of the race, turns 1 and 2, he loved the inside line, and then as the race went on, he stayed on the high side. Heat race wise, it went okay. Dropping a spot probably wasn't what he wanted to do. He was fast, but I mean, Atomic is a speedway that carries a lot of speed. And Bobby Pierce, you could see as soon as he went out there for practice, he was fast himself. So Larson, I think it was a good overall night, but dropping the spot in the heat race, I think, is what came back to get him.
Yeah, it definitely seemed. I mean, I don't know if Atomic is usually like that. I mean, I think it definitely looked fast, but it kind of seemed like it was a little bit hard to pass in the feature. Larson kind of was having a tough time in the feature, and like you said, moved up to the top. And I kind of feel like the blown tire, the blown right rear, is kind of just him just running it real hard around the top.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we discussed outside of the pod. Whenever one of us are in attendance, something like that occurs, and I mean, it happens, but I mean, he was battling for third with Brent Larson at that point, so he was working his way up, and he was going around hard. I could guarantee you that.
Yeah, he definitely was giving it all he had, and just didn't seem like it was enough for some of those guys up front. But like you said, good run from Brent Larson. Really, don't really see him up there towards the front that often. It was a pretty good run for him on Wednesday night. But some of the other guys talk about that race, Austin. Brandon Sheppard, he kind of fell back and faded back in that one. Really expected him to go out there. He is the points leader with the Castrol Flow Racing Night in America series. So, what did you think of the incident with him and Bobby Pierce? Do you think it was just a racing deal, or do you think Bobby kind of gave him a little dirty move there to take the lead?
I don't know. I mean, I think if you go back and watch it, and I've watched it several times since then, I think Bobby Pierce kind of thought he had him cleared. I doubt you'll cut down up under someone kind of like that and just take him out. But the unfortunate thing about that is, after that incident, Shepard kind of just faded. Shepard after that went downhill, so that probably took Shepard out of the race. But I don't think there's anything behind it, especially from Bobby Pierce. Bobby Pierce is probably one of the cleaner drivers when it comes to late models, so I just don't see it out of him.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Bobby Pierce, earned that one fair and square, and he sits, 91 points back to Brandon Shepard now in that championship for the Flow Racing Night in America series. I think there might be 3 or 4 races left. I think there's 4 left on the schedule right now, and they're talking about adding an additional one because they had like 3 or 4 that got rained out. So, maybe with some more races added onto that schedule, maybe we'll see Kyle Larson at some more of those events. Me and Dylan will talk about that in a little bit with one coming up here this week at I think it's Tri-County Racetrack in Brasstown, North Carolina, kind of close to Kyle and all the racing down there in North Carolina. So maybe we could expect him there. But Austin, I was kind of surprised you didn't take a second night trip down to Tyler County Speedway down there in West Virginia. I think that one was only like 3 hours away from you.
Yeah, just a little over 3 hours.
So Dylan, Tyler County on night 2. What were your thoughts on that race, Kyle? Obviously, it looks like on the stat sheet 100 laps led. It looked like a dominating performance, but he really had to fight tooth and nail for it. Brandon Shepard, Garrett Smith, Garrett Alberson, they were all over Kyle Larson the entire race. Kyle really had to fight for that one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, early on, it was kind of, Sheppy and Alberson were kind of giving him a run there. But, he even said in his post interview that might have been one of the luckiest races of his life. I mean, he was faster, but when the lap traffic hit, kind of seemed like he didn't stand a chance. Sheppy was kind of, easing up on him a little bit. But, we got some timely cautions, and that plays a part in him saying it's probably the luckiest race of his life. Cautions definitely helped him out there. But I mean, the biggest takeaway for me when he's in the late model is you mentioned it's been 2 or 3 months since he's been back in it, and he's just as dominant as ever. I mean, nothing really changes there. I mentioned to you well, I think it was last week. It would be really interesting to see if he ran a late model, full time someday. I mean, it's amazing to see him in the late model. He's a sprint car guy, but he just dominates the late model so much. It'd really be interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's so funny to see like a race like that at Tyler County where he gets out of the car after he leads all 100 laps, kind of, dominates the race on the stat sheet, but a hard fought battle. He gets out of the car and he says, "Look, I didn't know what I was doing half the time. I couldn't run the bottom, worth of crap. I had to run the top, and when I got in lap traffic, I wasn't good." And it's like this guy is so good in the late model. He does so many things right, but he's also got so much to learn, and he admits that every single time he runs the car. You really have to respect Kyle Larson, and he even admitted after the fact, after the race, they kind of were talking about how this was. At Tyler County, the Hillbilly 100 is one of the oldest crown jewel races in dirt late model racing, and Kyle kind of admitted he's like, I'm still getting used to like late model racing. I don't know what the crown jewel events are and what the big ones and the small ones are. So Kyle's definitely, he's very humble when it comes to the late model stuff, but he is definitely a bad man, and he proved that again on Wednesday or Thursday night, excuse me, at Tyler County. Kind of was a surprise race that kind of popped up on our schedule. We didn't talk about it at all last week, Dylan, but that was a race that was rescheduled a couple times from earlier in the season and even last year. But glad Kyle Larson went for night 2 in the late model, and it paid off for I think $30,000 there at Tyler County.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, we didn't really know much about it. We actually got a little hint on it from someone that messaged us. They said that he was going to run it, so that definitely helps. We get those people that kind of give us some little leaks about whether or not he'll be at a track, and it gets our attention, and then we kind of look into it, see if he's racing it. So, and then we obviously put the word out to everyone to let them know that he's racing. So, yeah, just a good win for him. 54th annual Hillbilly 100. Good race. Can't wait to see him, run that Eldora Million as far as crown jewels are concerned. Definitely think he put up a fight there.
So, Austin, before you hop out of here and we start talking about some NASCAR stuff, I just wanted to kind of look at the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series point standings. Right now, Tim McCready ahead of Brandon Sheppard by 160 points. I wanted to ask you, do you think that the Rocket One house car, Mark Richards Racing, and Brandon Sheppard, do you think they're regretting their decision to pull off of the World of Outlaws Late Model Tour and join the Lucas Oil Late Model Series? Because they are second in points right now and have a lot of ground to make up in just a few races here.
I don't think they regret it. I don't. There's no way. Only because you just simply look at the competition that Lucas Oil brings, and you're second in points behind one of the best late model drivers in the business, and Tim McCready. So I really don't see that they would be upset about that. I mean, they go to arguably the best late model series in racing, and they're still second. So I don't think they have anything to be upset about. I don't think they're regretting their decision or anything, because not only did they leave, but you look at the late models for World of Outlaws, it's a little bit on the weaker side. There's times where I struggle to watch their races at night, and Lucas Oil, I look forward to every single one of their races. So
Yeah.
I think Brandon Sheppard and them made a fantastic decision to go over to Lucas Oil, and I mean, they're competing. At the end of the day, they're competing. I bet you they're happy about that.
Yeah, I think they kind of started off the season on a little bit of a better note than what they've kind of finished off on. Obviously, they picked up the Prairie Dirt Classic win, which was a huge one. That was obviously the World of Outlaws a race, though, not a Lucas Oil one. But he's been a good season for Sheppy and the Rocket One car. But I don't know, maybe the change to Lucas Oil, maybe that contributed to Sheppard leaving Rocket One. I don't know if maybe him going to go run his own B5 next year. Do you think he's going to run a full-time schedule with the B5 in a specific series for points, or do you think he's going to run more of a pick and choose schedule, kind of like guys like Jonathan Davenport and Brandon Overton?
I think he'll do the pick and choose, and whatever he does, he's going to be good at it. Now it's his own call. He doesn't have someone to listen to and something like that. Everything's on him. I'm looking forward to Hudson O'Neal taking that spot over too, because I kind of feel like that's all that dude really needed is a team behind him. But Brandon Sheppard, I think he'll do the pick and choose, and I think he'll be good wherever he goes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I hope Sheppy does the pick and choose schedule because I think with being able to run whatever you want, you can go to the tracks that you're good at. You can focus on, stuff, specific races, and maybe not have to run some of the ones that are, 10,000 to win or whatever. And we've seen that B5 car, Brandon Sheppard's, personal car run really good. He won almost everything down in Vado in New Mexico back in January of this year, and that car looked awesome down there. And I definitely expect Brandon to do really good in his personal car, and then also I expect the same thing for Hudson O'Neal in the Rocket One, a new driver in that car. I think they're gonna do really good next year as well. So,
Absolutely.
Austin, thanks for joining in on the podcast. We'll definitely have to have you back on here soon. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right, Dylan. So now looking at Talladega, the NASCAR Cup Series race, race 2 out of 3 in the round of 12. Kyle Larson got things started off pretty good on Saturday. Qualified second. Looked like he had a lot of speed in qualifying, whatever that means. I mean, foot to the floor and steer around the track. I think that's pretty much all you can do at Talladega or these super speedways at least. But 18th place finish on the race on Sunday. I think I'm pretty happy with it, Dylan. What about you?
Yeah, at least we finished the race. I mean that's always an upside to look at. Like you said, qualified good. That doesn't matter. Elliott qualified like what 16th, and he won the race. But yeah, I mean he was staying up there pretty early on. It seemed like for majority of stage 1 and 2, he was kind of keeping his way up there. Didn't fall back in the pack too much, but um, you know probably the cleanest Talladega race in recent memory. I mean, we had the one little you know car pile up in turn one there. Not too many casualties there as far as the car is concerned. I think it was just Gibbs and Burton that were out of that one, and then I believe it was just LaJoy with the cut tire, and then Hemrick who stalled his car on he was going into pit lane or something like that. but I mean, no big wrecks or anything that we usually see at Talladega, and I kind of wanted to touch on that. We talk about this next gen safety. I mean, do you think it could have been, drivers kind of playing it careful, and they know the repercussions of kind of like driving a little harder than usual, trying to make those passes, and especially late race. I mean, you usually always see that at Daytona or Talladega. A guy tries to make a move, and that's where the big one happens. So, I mean, do you think that could have played a part in terms of safety in the next gen?
I definitely think that played a big factor into this race, and I think this is what NASCAR is going to start seeing at these super speedways if they don't make changes to the next gen car, because the drivers don't want to be at these super speedways to begin with, and now there's so many concerns about safety with the next gen car. I think that a lot of drivers are just going to play it safe, and they're not going to necessarily put it on the line as much as what they used to do. It's dangerous out there. We saw it last week with Alex Bowman. Now he was out of the car for Talladega, and Noah Gragson filling in for him. Hopefully he comes back next week for the Roval and can actually have a chance to make it to the next round. But I think NASCAR they add all these super speedways onto the schedule, like the two Atlanta races, because they want to have the action and they want to see the wrecks and all the stuff that the fans think make the TV ratings good. But a race like that on Sunday it's gonna be boring when there's no wrecks, there's no nothing going on, there's no the drivers are playing safe. Denny Hamlin, after the race, I think he ended up finishing fifth. He said in an interview that he was happy with finishing fifth. He said he didn't even want to make a move to try and get the win because it's just too risky to make a move to go for the win. He said he was just happy finishing fifth. And in any racing, that is a problem when a guy says, "Look, I'm happy with finishing fifth," because at the end of the day, everybody out there wants to win. But when a guy is okay, I'm happy with finishing fifth, you know that there's some problems with the car, and these guys are just worried at the end of the day.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, whether or not we would, kind of see some top drivers there, kind of stay in the back and kind of avoid any potential wrecks. But I mean, that wasn't the case because, I mean, for the most part, it's pretty much follow the leader. I mean, you had your typical, passes here and there, but I mean, it was just pretty much steady and smooth there. Larson, like I said, he stayed up front, but then ultimately finished 18th. I mean, he was up front. He abandoned that low line. He made his way in the high line. A lot of people were criticizing that. He said himself he should have stayed with Elliott and Hamlin there. The low line definitely had the most speed, most push there. So, at first I thought, I saw Larson go all the way back. I was thinking maybe he's kind of predicting a big wreck to happen. He's just kind of sitting there like a vulture, just trying to sweep up a good finish. But they said that it was the mistake with the lines, but like I said, at least we finished 18th isn't what we want. But heading into Roval, I mean, he's good at the Roval, so hopefully we're good there. Decent points day. I mean, finished pretty good stage one. I think it was eighth, and then stage two. Thought we had that stage two win, but finished third there. But nonetheless, still some good points.
Yeah, man, maybe that stage two was a little bit of Chase Elliott payback from
Yeah.
Watkins Glen. Just a subtle little like, I'm not gonna help you win the stage. I'm gonna go win it myself, and I mean, I'm fine with that. At the end of the day, it
Yeah.
sucks for Larson, but it's like, Chase is competing for a championship too, and he's got to go get his. And obviously, Chase did an awesome job at the end of the race, managing and taking home the win. So, congrats to that number 9 team, and obviously, we're very happy that it was a Hendrick car, a Chevrolet, getting in victory lane at Talladega. But yeah, to all the people that were kind of bashing Kyle for his decisions late in the race and saying that they're tired of Kyle doing so bad at the super speedways, it's like this guy Kyle Larson, we talk about him every week. We follow all of his racing. He's won everything there is in the past couple of years, across different series, different cars, tracks, whatever. This guy's gonna win a Daytona 500 someday. He's gonna win a super speedway race someday. Um, don't worry about it. He's gonna figure it out. He figures everything out, and look, he's out there. He's out there fighting. He's out there fighting every single race. He's not trying to finish 18th. He's making moves, and a lot of times it's not what he's doing. It's what other guys do. He makes a decision, and other guys don't follow him, or they mess up or make a mistake, it affects him. And it's so these type of races, it's not just one guy's decisions that affects where you finish. It's all the people around you.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what can happen going to super speedways. You can do everything right in that last lap when usually that big wreck happens. You could just get caught up in that and your whole day is ruined. So, not much you can do there. I mean, just that's the name of the game at the super speedways. Just overall, not much you can do. But yeah, I mean, tough day. I mean, 18th, hate to see it, but he'll get that super speedway one eventually.
Yep, absolutely. Biggest thing, Kyle, after all these wrecks and everything we've seen the past couple weeks, Kyle comes out of this race clean, safe, healthy, and ready to go into the Roval, a track that he is awesome at, Dylan. He sits 18 points above the cut line right now. Not the best place to be. I think it's better than a lot of guys like Bell and Bowman. They're in kind of must-win situations going into the Roval, but I think that Larson is going to be very strong at the Roval. He obviously is the defending winner of that race from last year. I think the only difference from like this year to last year, obviously the next gen car hasn't been to the Roval yet, other than a couple of tests I think last year. But I think the biggest difference is we've seen it on all the road courses so far this year. It's been extremely hard to pass, so I think qualifying is going to mean so much at this race. You're going to have to qualify good. You're going to have to start up front if you're going to win this race, because we saw it all year. A good representation of it, Watkins Glen. In the race that Larson won, he swept that weekend. The Xfinity car, you could fall back to like 30th and pass everybody and come up to the front again. In the Cup race, you'll lose 10 spots and your day's pretty much over unless you get lucky. So you're definitely going to have to qualify good here at the Roval, and I think qualifying good serves a dual purpose at the Roval, because we all know how hectic of a race that is, how many incidents there always is there going into turn one. I think qualifying up front is going to keep you that track position, and it's going to keep you out of trouble.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we talk about it every road course. Larson and Elliott are pretty much the favorites going into it, so definitely a good race for him. Looking at the playoff chart, though, I am surprised that Trackhouse has made it this long. We have Suarez and Chastain. Chastain, I'm not surprised, but pretty surprised to see Suarez. Briscoe's at the cut line. I figured he would have been eliminated last round. Logano, he's been racing good all year, but again, he didn't get the best finish at Talladega either with Larson. Him and Larson are both 18 points at the cut line. And then you have Hamlin at 21, Chastain 28, and Blaney 32. Blaney's an interesting one. He finished second at Talladega. We could see Blaney win a championship with no wins this season. He just seems to be putting up these good finishes. He it seems to be he always also gets second in every speedway race, super speedway race that he races, and he just can't catch a break there.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting when you look at the playoff standings, because you can kind of go down the list. Other than Chase Elliott, all the other drivers really haven't been super hot, like like any point in you know the recent, like the past like 10 or 15 races. These, like Daniel Suarez, he hasn't really done anything. He's sitting in 7th, 12 points above the cut line. He's kind of just been there. Same thing like Blaney. I mean, he's 32 above the cut line, but like you said, he hasn't won a race. He's just been super consistent. And Chastain, he hasn't done anything since he won his races earlier in the season. So it's like a lot of these guys are just kind of staying out of trouble and chugging their way through the rounds. And I think this year, more than like any year, that really shows up, because we've seen it like almost every race up until this one with Elliott, a non-playoff driver has won. So it's not so much about winning; it's just like being super consistent, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was what Bell was the only one that was locked in previous rounds before Ellie just got that win to lock him in. So it's always a points race every race when there's not playoff drivers, win the race that we've seen. Four straight. I mean, that's just crazy to me, especially after having so many different winners throughout the year. Going into it, talking about the playoffs. What guy's going to be in, what guy isn't. Then we go into the playoffs and we just have a bunch of guys that didn't win, and then you had Reddick win at round after he got eliminated from the playoffs. So just never know any race. It's something's always changing.
Right, and it's kind of ironic that the first race that a playoff driver wins is Talladega, the one that we would always probably expect a non-playoff driver to win that race in previous years. But anyway, kind of everything to talk about NASCAR there. We're looking forward to the Roval. Hopefully, Kyle Larson qualifies good, stays out of trouble, and is able to pick up his third win of the season. We definitely think it is within the realm of possibility there, Dylan, at that race next weekend. So, looking ahead to kind of the dirt stuff for Kyle Larson, like we said earlier, the Flow Racing Night America Series goes to the Tri-County Racetrack in Brasstown, North Carolina on Thursday night of this week. Maybe we'll see Kyle Larson there at that one. Nothing confirmed yet, but gotta think with that race being in North Carolina, I don't know where that is in relation to, Charlotte area, but if I assume it's not too far. So, the Rumley car obviously down there in North Carolina as well, and not too far away from the Roval on Saturday when Kyle needs to be there for practice and qualifying. So maybe we'll see him at that one, Dylan.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it always makes sense logistically for him to, participate in those races that are near the NASCAR races. Once playoff time came, we kind of stopped seeing him fly back and forth from across the country pretty much to, compete in these races. He's kind of locked in for the playoffs. So if the dirt races are there locally to where he's racing, I could see him racing it.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like Port Royal this weekend in Pennsylvania with the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Cars. A lot of people have been asking about that one now, and I just don't see Kyle heading up there to run that one, as he wasn't even planning to run National Open last weekend at Williams Grove. I know that one would have been him flying back and forth, but even with Pennsylvania to North Carolina, I think that would still be him flying, not driving back and forth. So I think it's just too much. But hey, you never know. National Open did get postponed actually to, I don't know, it's like October. I don't know. It's like October 22nd, I think now. So who knows? Maybe Kyle will show up to the rescheduled date. We'll see.
Yeah, you
But
never know. It's always pretty much a spur of the moment situation as far as dirt racing is concerned with him.
yeah, and like we said earlier, if anybody, I mean, we've been getting a lot of good tips from followers the past couple weeks on stuff. We had good tips on the Texas, the Little Texas Motor Speedway for the Micromania stuff 2 weeks ago, and then this week the Tyler County. Somebody on Facebook hit us up on that one too. So if anybody has any like tips on where Larson's running and stuff, feel free to reach out to us. We'll give you credit on the post because it's awesome to get these little tips from fans, and it helps us out when we're kind of like putting our stuff together and just posting stuff in general. So I think that's all we had for today's show, Dylan. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the show. Thanks again to Austin for being on the show again. We always enjoy him being on here and talking about some dirt track racing. But we'll be back again next week to recap all the racing from the Roval, and if Kyle potentially races in the Flow Racing Night America Series race at Brasstown, North Carolina. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and enjoy the on-track action over the next week. We will see you in the next episode.